I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking about intermittent fasting and really digging into the keto and low carb diets. And really, is this the right move for you when you are trying to conceive? We're going to talk about different phases of the cycle and what we recommend as far as fasting for each part of the cycle, and really how you can sort of customize this approach and this way of eating for women who are menstruating and who are trying to conceive. So I'm excited for you to listen to this episode. I would like to invite you and your partner to a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Call. This call is for you if you meet at least one of the following criteria. You've been trying to get pregnant for at least 2 years. You've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. This call is for action takers. If you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. If you're seriously considering work with us, go to fabfertile.com. That's fabfertile.com and click on apply here. That's fabfertile, fabfertile.com and click on apply here. Then you'll be booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. One theme that keeps coming up with the couples in our Fab Fertile Couples Coaching Program is sleep. Whether it's insomnia, having a hard time falling asleep, waking up at night, or feeling tired when we wake up, sleep is critical for fertility and hormones. And that's why I'm so excited to have Blue Blocks as our podcast sponsor. So we're exposed to blue and green light from our phones, our tablets, our computers, indoor lights, and more. And this exposure impacts our melatonin production. And melatonin is essential for both female and male fertility. It helps determine the frequency and duration of our cycle and impacts sperm. There's lots of blue light blocking glasses on the market, but the ones from Blue Blocks, they've actually compared other popular brands, and Blue Blocks block 100% of blue and green light, while other brands fall short. So I have their sleep glasses. They have red lenses, and the ones I have are a little translucent frame, and they're so stylish and really cool. And so they eliminate 100% of the blue and green light in the 400 nanometer to 550 nanometer range. So this is the exact range that has been shown in clinical studies to disrupt melatonin and negatively impact your sleep. So all you do is wear your sleep glasses after sunset until it's time for bed, and you'll notice improved sleep after just one use. And it's also cool to use when you're flying for managing jet lag. I got to say, I was a little skeptical about the noticing improvement after one use, but literally I use these glasses and my sleep is actually already pretty good. I used them for one day, and I have to say, after one day, I had the best sleep of my life. I just felt so rested. So these glasses, they ship free and they're tracked for all orders anywhere in the world. And also they have all their frames come in prescription, non-prescription, and reading glasses. Plus you can send in your frames and they'll add the blue light blocking and green light blocking lenses to your frame. So this is an easy hack that you can add to your fertility toolkit. All you do is go to BlueBlocks, BlueBlocks.com. Use the coupon code GetPregnantPodcast at checkout and receive a 15% discount. That's BlueBlocks, BlueBlocks.com, and use the coupon code GetPregnantPodcast to receive your 15% discount. Hey there. Thanks so much for listening to the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast. And I've got a favor to ask you. If you are enjoying learning about the functional approach to fertility, consider going to iTunes and rating and reviewing the podcast. This is how it helps the show reach more people that are struggling with infertility, knowing that there's another approach that really can get to the bottom of why it's not working in the first place. So all you need to do is, if you're on the app or the desktop, just go in and consider leaving a 5-star rating and leave a review. And there is step-by-step instructions in the show notes showing you exactly how to do that. So if you can just take a few minutes, just take the few minutes right now. You can pause this recording, come back, leave the review. It would really mean the world to me and help others that are on the fertility journey as well. Take care. I didn't need to go to donor eggs. Obviously, I don't regret it. I have beautiful children. I could have done things differently, restored. I was still cycling back in my 20s. I could have looked at my health, the environmental toxins, the stress I was under.
Many women are being told their eggs are too old. That's often merely an assumption that's not based on actual evidence. The reason being that there is no direct test of egg quality. You can't test egg quality.
It's the man who's got a food sensitivity or he has a zinc deficiency.
Like, there can be a root cause to these symptoms that are, quote unquote, period problems, that the doctor will pass you a pill without any question of why.
And some part of you knows that if you can reframe your journey from not want to struggle, or if it is struggle, learn how to embrace the struggle. Learn how to embrace it.
Most conditions in the child occur during the 9 months of development. It's the genetic switches are turned on or turned off, and they're pre-programmed. So you are in such a powerful, amazing position to do amazing things for your kids.
You know, why is IVF the first step? Because we believe it should be the last step. Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey there, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of Fab Fertile and your host. I believe the functional approach is the first step for anyone struggling with infertility, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. Today, I'm welcoming Brandy Buskow back to the podcast, and we're digging into low carb and keto and how this can help you when you're trying to conceive. Brandy is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, board certified functional wellness coach, and master EFT practitioner. And she's part of my team here at Fab Fertile. Thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know someone else who is on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Hey, Brandy, excited to have you back on the podcast.
Thanks, Sarah. It's glad to be back.
Awesome. So today we're going to be digging into a topic kind of on our we had a little weight loss series that we're doing, and sort of adding on to that. There's a lot of, I think so much information, obviously, with regards to different diets to help with weight loss and what can really help sustain it and what's good for fertility. So today we're going to be talking about keto and low carb and really, how can those help for people that are on the fertility journey. So why don't we just start with what does so many women get wrong with keto and low carb? What are some of the top mistakes you see there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Keto, low carb has been around for a really long time, and it's kind of gotten more notoriety in the mainstream for the past several years. But one of the things that you'll notice when you are kind of following a lot of keto people is most of them are men. And so the standard way that they explain to do a ketogenic diet works fantastic for men, but it doesn't account for the nuances that we as women have when it comes to our cycle. And there are more and more women who are advocating for women who are really talking about how we need to do things differently as women so that we can really support our hormones throughout our cycles. So the standard keto of more fat, less carbs, intermittent fast every single day, it doesn't matter what you eat, just is not conducive to supporting our cycles. And oftentimes what can happen is that women will jump into keto low carb. They'll start eating, the standard I can have all the fat I want. Okay, I'm going to have butter and bacon and cheese and cream and all of these things. Or because they've been dieting for so long and they're so worried about calories, oftentimes women will undereat. And so the two biggest things that I see and that you often see with women doing low carb and keto is either they're not getting enough calories, or if they are, they're not getting enough protein and carbohydrates to really support both their thyroid and their hormones. And I guess I'll add in a third, because this is one that I think we really want to cover in this conversation, is they're doing fasting wrong. Fasting is often associated with ketogenic diets. And I think it's really important to talk about the impact of fasting and scenarios and when you would use it and when you wouldn't use it, and how to fast and do a ketogenic diet according to the different phases of your cycle.
Yeah. So let's talk about that fasting piece now. So what is the best way to do this low carb keto diet?
Yeah. So if we start talking about fasting, there's a couple of different things. Let's first kind of identify what fasting is. So fasting is basically a period of time where you are not taking in any calories, or basically you're not eating or drinking your calories. We all fast when we're sleeping because we're not eating when we're sleeping. So every single one of us is usually fasting for at least maybe 8 to 10 hours every single day because we're not eating from when we're done dinner. We go to sleep, we wake up, and then that's when we start eating again. So fasting is normal. Fasting is important because it gives your body the opportunity to have a break from having to digest food. It allows the body to rest and repair and do all the things that it needs to do at rest. If you're eating food constantly and you don't give your digestive system a break, it's not going to be able to do the things it needs to do to repair the gut lining and process vitamins and nutrients and repair muscle tissue and all of those things. So that's why fasting is really important. And when we start thinking about the ketogenic diet, oftentimes people, when they start keto or low carb, they tend to start feeling more satiated because they're eating more fat. And then what happens is that they start eating less, which is great, but then they can start taking it to the extreme of, okay, well, I'm going to do a 24-hour fast, or I'm going to do a 3-day fast. And in some instances, those are appropriate. But if you're a woman who's having hormonal issues and having problems conceiving, or you have autoimmune disorders, maybe you have endometriosis, maybe you have PCOS, maybe you have hypothyroidism, maybe you're really stressed out and your adrenals are struggling, intense fasting may not be appropriate for you. If we look at fasting from a female hormone perspective, here's how I would recommend doing it. So week 1 of your period, so that's bleed week. That's the day you start bleeding, that first week. This is actually where our hormones, for most women, can handle those longer, more intense fasts. So if you really like doing OMAD or 1 meal a day, so you fast maybe for 20 hours and then you have a 4-hour eating window, this is the week of your cycle where you can handle that. Your body adjusts really, really well to fasting. This is also the week of your period where if you are going to embark on a ketogenic diet or low carb dieting and you're switching from eating a ton of carbs to not a lot of carbs, this is actually the best week to do it because your body's going to adjust to it much better. In week 1 of your period, this is where you can maybe do a 24-hour water fast with maybe some herbal teas, or even 2 or 3 days in a row of a bone broth fast. So that's where you're having like clear liquids and maybe just some bone broth, which can be very healing to the gut. The body tolerates this really, really well. Once you get into week 2, so that's the week before your body ovulates, this is the time where your body can handle fasting, but you don't want to do those intense 24-hour or 2 to 3 day fasts, because this is where we are really wanting to support progesterone and estrogen while it's getting ready to mature the egg and release the egg. And so in week 2, this is where a lot of women struggle, but this is where you need a lot more protein. Protein is going to be really, really important in week 2. And so you want to make sure that you're eating enough calories in that week to support both estrogen and progesterone leading up to the LH surge, which releases the egg. Now, the only caveat that I would say in week 2 that you want to keep in mind is that if you do have PCOS or you do have high testosterone, this could be a good opportunity for you to continue maybe doing longer fasts, because that will help to dampen down your insulin resistance and also help to lower testosterone, which will help the LH surge and will help increase your chances of ovulating. So for anybody who has PCOS, most of the weeks of your cycle are a good week for you to do a lot of fasting because that's really going to help improve insulin sensitivity. But for most women, week 2, the week before ovulation, this is where you're just going to want to do regular intermittent fasting, where maybe you don't eat for 12 hours and then you have a 12-hour eating window, or you can maybe don't eat for 14 hours and you have a 10-hour eating window. So intermittent fasting is best in week 2 for most women, because this is where we want to make sure we're getting enough calories and enough nutrients to support the hormones necessary for ovulation. Once we get into week 3, so this is you've ovulated and now this is the week after ovulation. Again, your body starts to become more insulin resistant here. It's less tolerant to extreme changes in your diet, because when you do too much fasting in this week or you restrict too many calories, it definitely has an impact on how well your body continues to produce progesterone throughout the luteal phase of your cycle. And so in week 3, this is again where I would say regular intermittent fasting can be helpful if you want to, but it's not necessary. The exception to that rule, like I said in week 2, was if you have PCOS, this is definitely, again, a week where you can add in several 24-hour fasts, whether it's a water fast or a bone broth fast, because again, that will help to lower inflammation and it will help to lower insulin resistance, which is going to be really supportive for you ladies that struggle with ovulation and hormone production. Then week 4, so this is the week before your period starts. This is actually the hardest week physiologically for most women to do a lot of fasting and calorie restriction, because we actually do need more carbohydrates in this week. And the reason for that is this is towards the end of your luteal phase. You're continuing to build up that endometrial lining, and your body can actually handle more calories in this last week. This is why most women tend to, report that they crave more carbs. And this is the week where I would say if you are going to add more carbs to a low carb diet, this is the week that you can get away with it because your body can handle them better. And they're very supportive for your hormones. So again, in this week, in week 4, I probably wouldn't be doing any intense fasting. I would wait till your period starts and the cycle starts all over again. And you can really test out, a 24-hour fast or a 2-day fast during your bleed week.
Yeah. So that week 1, that OMAD, one meal a day. So I haven't done any of this fasting. It sounds scary, and that I would go into starvation mode, and I can't even get my mind around it because I wake up and I'm like, give me my breakfast. You need it now. Well, no, that's not true. I can probably on the weekend, maybe I'll do like some water, or I'll go for sigmatic coffee or something. Then I'll have breakfast maybe a little bit later. But typically during the week, it's like I'll wake up and then an hour later have breakfast. So my husband started doing the fasting, so he will wait until like noon, but then it's like, get out of his way because he's making his lunch. He's going to pass out. So there is a thing though of not getting like that, like too far gone, right? Like if you're, yeah.
Yeah. And you definitely, and that you don't have to fast. This is the other thing. A lot of people think when you're doing low carb and keto, you have to fast. You don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, everybody is doing intermittent fasting every single way in one form or another, because we're, like I said, when we're sleeping, we're not eating. And so it's not required. But if you are somebody that is doing fasting and you're interested in it because of the longevity benefits, and there definitely are some benefits to fasting, if you maybe do a 2 or 3 day fast, what that does is it really, really gives the body the opportunity to repair. Some autophagy happens. So some of those bad cells that your body needs to eliminate from the body will happen during an extended fast. There has been studies to show that these types of fasts can help with health and longevity and mitochondria and energy. But if you don't want to be doing that every month, there's nothing that says you have to. Some people just like to do it quarterly. So once a quarter, they'll do a little 2-day fast just as a little mini reset. That's really can be great for your digestive system to just give it a break from having to process foods. But there's nothing saying you have to be fasting or doing long-term fasts. But if you like fasting, this is, I think, what can be missing sometimes from the fasting conversation is understanding the types of fasts that your body can handle during the different phases of your cycle.
Now, if your cycle is irregular and it's all over the place, how do you then figure out what to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is where you can maybe follow the moon cycles. Mm-hmm. So the first half of the moon cycle would be like the start of your period. So you would consider like the new moon is bleed week, and then you'll just follow the cycles, whereas the full moon is the end of that cycle and you're starting over again. So you can follow the moon cycles, or if your cycles are all over the place, that again, I mean, Sarah, you have, as you talk about in all of your podcasts, that's an indication of dysfunction, and maybe fasting might not be right for you. And maybe the focus for you might be really focusing on nutrition and micronutrients and really getting all the nutrients in that you need so that you can replenish your body stores so your body can start doing what it needs to do to heal and try to help you start to balance out those hormones and balance out those cycles.
So the water fast, 24 hours, what does that look like?
So a water fast, so that could be something, basically it's non-caloric liquid. So that's going to be water. You can have herbal teas. You just want to make sure that you're looking at teas that don't have, sometimes they put like extra fruit pieces and stuff in it. So there's a little bit of calories in there. You could have black coffee, black tea, any clear liquid, essentially, what you could do on a water fast. I don't typically, and the people that I follow and who I've trained with don't typically recommend a dry fast. So that's where you're not having any liquid at all. A water fast can be really helpful. And, most people, if they had to, I mean, we've all done it once or twice where maybe we've had a stomach bug and we've had nothing but liquids all day. And then when you feel better, you're like, oh, I feel lighter and I feel great. Like that's how you can feel. The one thing I would caution on a water fast, if you're not used to fasting, is you want to make sure you're getting enough minerals. And so this is where I would recommend maybe putting in a little bit of sea salt into your water. Even, some electrolytes can be really helpful just so you don't get any of that brain fog and muscle cramping. And yes, some electrolytes have a little bit of calories. But if you're really trying to do a water fast because you want to feel the benefits of extra energy, or you want to experience the benefits of like giving your body a break and allowing it to repair, a little bit of electrolytes is not going to ruin that. And it might actually help you get through the whole day without feeling hangry and like you're going to eat a giant steak as soon as you're done.
I know, because I've done some of this deprivation. I don't know I can't remember, it was years ago where it was like, I couldn't eat. Like I did some restrictive diets kind of from a food sensitivity standpoint. And at the end of it, because I'm in Canada, I wanted to go to Tim Hortons, and I don't eat that stuff because it's junk, but I literally wanted to go eat every donut in the place. It was like some vicious craving of like, oh my God, so bad.
Yeah. And actually you bring up a really good point. If you are somebody that struggles with emotional eating or struggles with the extremes, like you get triggered by deprivation, I probably wouldn't recommend starting to go deep into fasting until you've really had the opportunity to work through those emotions, because that could start to trigger that cycle of like deprivation and binging. And we definitely don't want that to happen because then it negates the benefits of fasting.
It's interesting because I don't consider myself having that issue, but I remember like years ago studying macrobiotics, and it was at this very quiet, it was like I stayed at a monastery and I was there for like a week and learning all this kind of stuff. And I came out of there, I wanted to play like loud, obnoxious music, yell. And like, it was just like at the end of it, I'm like, good Lord, it was just too much. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, one way. Okay, and then the bone broth, what are you drinking there? Obviously the bone broth, but
yeah, you're just making some broth. So you can buy some. You want to make sure you're getting a good quality bone broth and not just like a chicken broth that you get from Walmart or something.
Yeah.
Even though there are some good ones you can get, but if you can make some homemade bone broth, like take some chicken bones, put them in a pressure cooker or boil them on the stove for a day just to get all the nutrients out of it. And what the purpose of a bone broth fast is it's really giving your digestive system a break, and it's helping to lower inflammation in the gut. So you are getting a little bit of calories, you're getting some minerals, which is, satiating and makes you feel good. But it's just really, really supportive for gut health. Yeah,
which is that we see a lot with a lot of our clients with the low AMH and high FSH and premature ovarian insufficiency, diminished ovarian reserve, where, there could be a lot of inflammation going on. So taking that 1 to 2 day break where you're healing the gut, and people would think with these sort of diagnoses, but like the gut is the center of it all. We have people start the elimination diet, and we always say don't start it on a birthday, anniversary, or if you've got a party going on. So having said that, like I'm a let's get this thing going kind of person. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine when I'd want to start either of these. So like when would we start them?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, in the first week of your cycle, so that bleed week, that is actually when your hormones are primed to be able to handle something more restrictive. So this would be an ideal time for for you to start an elimination diet, because when you're eliminating foods, inevitably what's going to happen until you get used to the diet, you're actually going to be restricting calories. And it's not on purpose, but it's because you're getting used to it. And so your body can handle that more. It's not going to impact your hormones as much if you start it during that first week of your cycle. So day one of that week is the day you start bleeding. This is when maybe you could try a 24-hour bone broth fast, or maybe you can try going low carb or try the ketogenic diet. The week one of your cycle is the best week to do that because you'll have an easier time adapting.
Okay. And then if you're irregular, you're doing with the new moon. Week number 2 is more you can do that 12 hours or 14-hour fast. And kind of if there's PCOS or insulin, you want to kind of watch that.
Right. And week 2 is where you really, really, really want to focus on protein. Yeah. So this is where you want to ramp up. Even if you're doing a ketogenic diet, think about it. And this is really important for women. Again, for men, they could do regular fasting and keto. And I mean, it has some effect, but they can normally do that every single day. Week 2 of a women's cycle is where you need a lot of protein. And so if you're doing a ketogenic diet and maybe you're doing low protein, up your protein in week 2. Your body needs it. It needs those building blocks for the hormones. So that's where when we're talking about keto and low carb, a lot of times you're not having this conversation of like, how can I eat to support my hormones? How can I eat cyclically throughout my cycle to be really supportive?
And then week 3, there could be some insulin resistance there too. So you could do the regular intermittent fasting you're talking about. And then week 4 could be a little bit, you could have those cravings. It could be harder to fast. And so you wouldn't recommend fasting during that week 4.
Right. And week 4 is where I would do what we call, if any of you know Leanne Vogel, she's really an amazing nutritionist who is one of the first people that really talked about how to change the ketogenic diet for women. This is where she would call her carb up weeks. And carb up not meaning like, okay, go eat a whole bag of Oreos, but this is where like, if you've been craving it all month, having half of a baked potato or a little bit of rice or something like that, or, maybe you're craving half a banana or something, those higher carb foods. This is the week where it can be really beneficial for you. And the thing about those things, like maybe a sweet potato or white potato or some white rice, is the resistant starches in those foods actually help to feed the microbiome, which is a good thing. And it also can be really satiating. So it can kind of satisfy those cravings that you have in that week. So if you've been depriving yourself all month, rather than going for like I said, a bag of Oreos or a bag of chips, have some carbs. Don't be afraid of them. Your body can tolerate them this week, and it may actually be helpful and make you feel more balanced. And it may even help a little bit with some of those PMS symptoms before your period arrives and you start back at week 1.
And so then from the, with cravings or impulsiveness with eating, I don't know why mine's impulsiveness. Mine's more like I have this, it's a chip habit. It's just got to go. But anyways, it was like a weekend chip habit that turned into like a all week long. And I'm like, and now it's like, if I'm working later, I'm like, oh, I need my little thing. Like they're organic and gluten free, but whatever, they're still chips. And so like if we're kind of doing things that we know, is not the best for us, how does this sort of way of eating help with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, I think what's important to know is that we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace and meet yourself where you are. So, I mean, obviously, we all know it's not good to be eating like chips every single day. But what you can do is you can, be gentle with yourself and make small changes. So maybe look for, you can still get that crunch, but maybe look for something that has less carbs in it, maybe a little bit more protein, or change the quality so that you're satisfying that craving, but you're giving yourself the macronutrients that your body needs. And this is another thing that we see a lot with low carb and ketogenic diets is that oftentimes people may fail or not feel satisfied because they're not giving themselves all of those little nutrients they need. Like you need vegetables, you need the minerals and nutrients in those vegetables. You want to make sure you're getting all of that and not just eating butter and cheese and cream and bacon. You're not going to get, it's going to feel good. You're going to feel pretty full, but you're going to start to have issues with your hormones and cravings and things like that because you're missing some important minerals. So try to have a variety, try different things, be gentle with yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And there are different ways that you can, satisfy that crunch. There's things like kale chips. There's things like pork rinds. I mean, there's some amazing pork rind companies out there that have flavored pork rinds that are super tasty, and like you get that crunchy feeling out and you're super satisfied. So there are definitely ways of doing it, but be gentle with yourself. And it's not an all or nothing, because that's when you set yourself up to fail.
Yeah. And you've talked about this, the under eating, the stress in the body. I think many times when we look at people's food diaries, we're like, what are they eating? And sometimes it could be they're just eating the 1 to 2 meals a day, or they're just not even eating enough fat or protein. And then then the body's hanging on to, I guess, the weight in this standpoint. But yeah, what are you seeing with under eating?
Yeah, this is really, really common with women. They've been dieting their whole life. They've been kind of given this bill of goods of you need to eat 12 to 1400 calories a day, and that's the only way to stay lean. And really, for most women, that is under eating. And when you under eat, you're not getting all the nutrients that you need. Really has an impact on your hormones because you're almost putting your body in this constant state of stress. And so if you're coming from that area and you're finding it really hard to get in enough calories, again, go slow. So some women need 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day just to kind of keep body processes going, to keep their muscles, keep you from losing muscle. You might go, there's no way I can eat that much food. Like I've been eating 1,200 calories. I can't go up to 1,800. Okay, that's great. Try just a little bit extra every single day to find what works for you, but focus on the quality of your food and try to focus on getting a wide range of food so that you can really feel satisfied and get your nutrients. You don't have to be eating 4,000 calories a day. Most women definitely need more than 1,200. Quality over quantity is more important.
Yeah. Don't count calories, count chemicals.
Yes.
And obviously, with all of this, we want you to take more of a personalized approach. And, we're using food sensitivity testing and digging deeper into this personalized diet. So this is a good way to kind of lean your way into this and then digging deeper then with testing so we can personalize it. Okay. What's your go-to for some dinners or meals for to eat with this? What would that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, this is probably something a lot of women struggle with because they're trying to feed their family, and maybe their family doesn't want to eat this way. So soup, we tend to make things overcomplicated, but super simple. A really good protein side with some vegetables. And if you have a family, make a little carb side for them. So make them maybe some rice or a potato or something. So maybe you're having some steak and broccoli and you add a little bit of ghee on top of it. I love ghee. If you can't tolerate dairy, most people who can't tolerate dairy can tolerate ghee, which is clarified butter. The bonus with ghee is that ghee has a lot of butyrate in it. And butyrate is a substance that's really supportive to your gut. So if you like that buttery flavor, don't shy away from it. And the other important thing to know is in order to get the nutrients out of those vegetables, you need fat. So you need to add fat on top of it. But it could be some ghee. It could be maybe a little bit of goat cheese. It could be some avocado oil or some olive oil. And then you can make a starchy side for your family if you want. It could be chicken thighs and a really nice big salad, or it could be, pork tenderloin. I mean, there's so many different options that you can do. There's no lack of variety. Good quality protein, some veggies, some non-starchy vegetables to just really fill you up and make you feel good. And then add the starch on the side if you want to for your family. Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm sort of doing regularly. I'll sort of maybe 2 or 3 times a week add in a little bit of rice or but then I have that chip habit. So maybe so getting the potato chips. I know when I have more fats and proteins, then I don't want that little snack. I feel like almost sometimes it must be that, because sometimes people, if you still have the snack or the craving, have you had enough during the day? Like, what are you seeing there? Because sometimes I just feel like I need to have, like, I'm still hungry.
Absolutely. And so again, this is something that we tend to see is that women will have like a light breakfast or a really carb heavy breakfast, and then they're just craving all day, and they get to the end of the day and they just want to eat the whole fridge. So you want to make sure that, you're balancing your meals well. Like, don't be afraid to have good amount of protein and fat with your meal, because that's the thing that's going to make you feel full. That's the thing that's going to sustain you throughout the day. And that could be as easy as, we're talking low carb and keto. So I'm not going to talk about oatmeal, but it could be some, maybe some eggs with some avocado, and then maybe like a quarter cup of strawberries. Like, that's a pretty good meal, and you're going to feel pretty satisfied on that. Or, if you can't do eggs, I can't do eggs. You can get, you could do some leftover meat or something with some vegetables and kind of make a hash. That always tastes really, really yummy, really good. Or you can do a protein shake. There are some really good proteins out there. Use some full fat coconut milk, maybe add some hemp hearts or something in there, or some nut butter to add some more fat, and you're going to feel pretty satiated. So don't shy away from having enough food at your meals.
Yeah, definitely go check out Fertility Diet Freebie. So Fertility Diet Freebie. And we still have we've done quarterly spring and summer challenges, and we had a winter challenge. There's still recipes from the summer challenge in there with some really cool breakfast ideas, kind of along the lines of sort of some meat patties and other different things I think there's a little meat patty there with a avocado and arugula. Anyway, some of it feels like you're a chef and you feel pretty fancy when you're eating it. So it's good. What about some snacks? I'm in a snack rut right now. But so yeah, what are you recommending there?
Yeah. So again, if we're focusing on low carb and keto, so some really great snacks could be, some coconut butter or some coconut chips. Those are always really tasty. If you like beef jerkies, there's a lot of really good beef jerkies out there that you can have. Maybe a handful of macadamia nuts. So macadamia nuts are pretty low in carbs. Everybody loves macadamia nuts. They're really fatty and satisfying. I also really like pecans. So pecans are lower in carbs as well. But then the other benefit of pecans is they tend to be a little bit easier on the gut. They're easier to digest. So something like that can be really tasty. Pork rinds. It may sound weird, but if you kind of like the cheese and crackers or like peanut butter sandwich or something like that, you could take some pork rinds and add a little bit of sunflower seed butter or something on it. It sounds weird, but it's really satisfying, and you don't need a lot to feel full. So there's definitely options out there, and there's nothing wrong with snacking if you're having those snack attacks. Another crunchy thing that I wanted to add in there is kale chips. They're really good. Like, you could take some kale chips, put them in the oven, crisp them up. They are delicious. They're so good.
Yeah, I kind of got into those in the last year because I finally did it right, where before I wasn't cooking them enough, and either I burnt them or they were mushy, and now I'm like, they take a little longer, but I'm like, just sea salt and some olive oil, and yeah, you can just chow down on the whole entire head of but I split it with my daughter usually.
Or if you have an air fryer, you can take any of those cruciferous vegetables, like take some cauliflower or some broccoli or something, chop them up, add some nice oil, some good chunky salt on there, crisp them up. Those really satisfy your crunchy cravings.
Beef jerky, do you have a recommendation of one you like? Or
I am a really, really big fan of carnivore crisps. So I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I've really tried them, and they are super clean. They have all kinds of options, and they're really reasonably priced. So those ones are really good. I really love the meat sticks from Paleo Valley. And the benefit of Paleo Valley is there's actually some probiotics in them. So they're good for the gut. Just make sure that when you're looking at beef jerkies, I bought beef jerky at a local grocery store too. You want to just read the ingredients. A lot of them have a lot of sugars in them, so you want to look for that. Many of them are not gluten-free because they use soy sauce or tamari in there. So you want to just read the labels, but it's getting easier and easier to find really good, clean beef jerky or beef sticks. You just want to look for something that doesn't have a lot of fillers and doesn't have a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah, I do some of those Epic bars. I keep one of those in my purse. Some of them can be super salty, so you feel like you got to down like a whole thing of water when you're finished. But better than like if you're traveling and stuff like that, I will keep some of those just in case things go bad and I can't find my gluten and my dairy-free stuff and more. And so those will tide me over from having a blood sugar dip and ripping out my travel companion's eyeballs. Usually my husband. And then as far as, so what are some resources that you like on this topic? The book or website, an app, documentary? There's lots of stuff going on right now. Where is you have a go-to thing that you want to recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really great women who are talking about this right now. Some really great thought leaders. So I already mentioned Leanne Vogel from Healthful Pursuit. She has the Keto Diet podcast. She also has the Keto Diet book and cookbook. Leanne is a really great resource. I highly recommend Leanne. Dr. Sarah Gottfried actually just recently came out with a new book on really talks about the ketogenic diet and women and hormones. So that could be another really great resource. Another one that I really, really love is Dr. Stephanie Estima. She's a Canadian doctor, and she's really talking a lot about this. She's got a book called The Betty Body.
I just saw that, yeah.
Yes. And then she does also have a podcast, and that one is Better with Dr. Stephanie. Really, really great. Those are some really great resources. And then Maria Emmerich. I know you've had Maria on your podcast as well. And Maria is great. Her and her husband are just always looking at the science of ketogenic and low carb. Maria had PCOS, and so she's really, really knowledgeable and works with a lot of women who are dealing with hormonal issues. So she's another really great resource as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been on Leanne Vogel's podcast. That Keto Diet podcast is awesome. Dr. Sarah Gottfried, of course, is like the OG there. So she's awesome. And how do you spell Estima?
Estima.
Okay, awesome. So in the Betty Body, I just saw that go flying by on my feed for somewhere just recently. So I guess she must have a new book. Maria, she's got a whole arsenal of cookbooks that she's written. Maria Emmerich. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Any final thoughts you wanted to share on this, Brandy?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that, diet, again, is only one piece. So it's really, really important to know that this is one piece of the puzzle, and it can be a really, really good tool for a lot of women, especially who are dealing with Hashimoto's, endometriosis, PCOS. A lot of those conditions or diagnoses relate to a lot of inflammation. And so diet can have a really big impact. And if you are looking at a ketogenic low carb approach, doing it right, focusing on non-inflammatory foods, making sure that you're kind of timing things with your cycle, really paying attention to nutrient status, I think can be really, really beneficial, and you can see some shifts. But it's also important to remember all of the other lifestyle factors, getting sunlight, circadian rhythm, like having good sleep, thinking about stress, movement, all of these things play into really helping you balance your hormones. So diet is just one piece, and it can be a big piece, but everything else is extremely, extremely important.
Absolutely. And where can the listeners find you, Brandy?
Yeah, for sure. So I am at bbhealthcoaching.com. I mostly just have information on EFT, which is an emotional modality that I do with clients. And they can also find me on social media. So Instagram at bbhealthcoaching.
Awesome. And so Brandy's done obviously tons of podcast episodes on this podcast, as well as a number of ones on the podcast about emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. So you're really helping with the trauma when you're diagnosed with these, complex diagnoses that we're dealing with. And so that can be really something to add into your toolkit as well to help, identify the trauma and move it out. So I encourage you to listen to, there's a number of episodes we've done on that to dig a little deeper there. So thanks again, Brandy, for coming on the podcast. It was a great topic, and hopefully it'll get people doing one of these fast. I think I feel like I'm ready. I'm getting close. So anyways, thanks again.
Thank you.
I would like to invite you and your partner to a Supercharge Your Fertility Discovery Call. This call is for you if you meet at least one of the following criteria. You've been trying to get pregnant for at least 2 years. You've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. This call is for action takers. If you're not ready and you wait, the risk is you'll need to wait 2 to 3 months for a spot to open up. If you're seriously considering work with us, go to fabfertile.com. That's fabfertile.com and click on apply here. That's fabfertile, fabfertile.com and click on apply here. Then you'll be booked in and ready to spend 30 minutes to give you the action plan to getting pregnant naturally. Melatonin is important for female fertility. It helps regulate hormones and maintain the body's circadian rhythms. Plus, it helps determine the frequency and duration of the menstrual cycle. Plus, it impacts sperm count and motility. Blue and green light negatively impact our melatonin production. That's why we recommend Blue Blocks, blue and green light sleep glasses to all our one-to-one clients. Simply go to Blue Blocks, BLUBLOX.com and use the coupon code GETPREGNANT podcast at checkout to receive your 15% discount. That's Blue Blocks, BLUBLOX.com and use the coupon code GETPREGNANT podcast. The Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, including show notes and links, provides information with respect to healthy living, nutrition, lab testing, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Get Pregnant Naturally podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified physician for medical advice and always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.